Hey everybody, it's Drew Scooter doing these office hours. Kind of impromptu. I was going to actually record an on location episode, but changed my plans and figured I'd do one of these and answer questions that are coming up. The issue I'm encountering with this is just the messaging. One of the issues that's ongoing with Sleep With Me over the whole history is that everybody listens and gets information from different places. So I guess I have to ask that you're patient. Even these videos we try to put them out. We're putting out messages in the feed. We're sending out emails and we're sending out messages through Patreon. So you may get all these in different order. Just come to the Patreon page and look through the videos and read through everything. I'm going to run through the answers to most of the questions and then go to specific questions. I got my nog, two kinds of nog here. But thanks everybody who has moved their things over or who are not even, well, I guess if you're on Discord, you're seeing this, but have canceled their Patreon pledges. But I'm going to run through really quick all the most important things you need to know about Sleep With Me Plus, not the marketing pitch part, but that might answer your questions, and I have them numbered. First thing is, almost every issue we've encountered with people moving over to Sleep With Me Plus thus far have been people that have been rushing. So please go slow and read everything and just go step by step by step. Just take your time. Almost every issue we've encountered has just been like just not taking your time and reading through. And that kind of goes to like how adept you are or comfortable with technology. If you're pretty comfortable and I still would read through everything because that's where you get to see your credits and everything like that. I guess I'm trying not to get too complicated. Just go slow. That's tip one. Tip two is it is only 4 steps total. So the step one is connecting your Patreon to Supercast. Step two is creating your Supercast account. On step 3, you'll go to a screen where all your Supercast information is on one page and you can add stuff to your podcast app right there. And then step 4 is canceling your Patreon account. And that's it. It's just 4 steps. And 2 of those, that's been Supercast, who is running Sleep With Me Plus's pitch for years, is that it's a 2-step process. It's 4 steps because we're porting your Patreon over. If you have questions about that, again, there's other posts in this thing and you'll keep getting them. So it should be only 4 steps. And maybe I'll walk through that more. So that's, number 3, third most important thing. If for some reason, there's been 1 or 2 issues where people have needed support. I already know 2 of the people on support for Supercast by first name. Supercast is a much smaller company and it only focuses on podcasts. So ask for help. Everything I'm sending out has the Supercast support email in there. So if you have a question or you get stuck, they're there to help. And that's been a kind of hard challenge. I know there's people that don't like to ask for help. I don't like to ask for help, but that's the only way we can help you is to just send that support email. And it's going to be a lot different of a support experience now because, again, Supercast is smaller and they're only focused on podcasting. I do want to make one, please be kind to the people that are running the support, and also please be as specific as you can. Again, it's the same thing like I said before. Go slow and just say, hey, I tried to do this and this is what happened and it's not working. Or, hey, I don't understand this specifically. But just do that after you read through everything. But they're there to help. We're like, they're not, this isn't a concierge service though. So please be patient too. I know over Thanksgiving, there were still support people working, but it's not going to be, you understand, they will get back to you, and it's been a much different experience thus far for the couple people that have needed support. And my interactions, like I said, in the past, the fact that I know 2 people by their first name says a lot in a positive way. Okay, 4. Should I go to 4 next? Why is this number 1? That's number 1. Oh, that's number 5. Okay, so number 4. This is a strong recommendation, even if you've already moved over to Supercast and you're watching this video, but particularly if you don't consume a lot of podcasts, or even if you do, I strongly recommend a fresh start. And what I mean by a fresh start is if you don't already listen on a high quality podcast app, download a free high quality podcast app, Pocket Cast, Overcast, Podcast Addict, or go on YouTube and do some research, or go on one of the Sleep With Me communities and get a feel. Those are the 3 apps that I recommend. And I would say only use that app for Sleep With Me Plus content. So pick a podcast app that is fresh, or clear out a podcast app and then only use it for Sleep With Me Plus content. This has been something that has started to happen more and more as I've encouraged it more and more, because patrons have encouraged me. It will change your experience, because I don't know, it's just how I use podcast apps too. I've talked about this in other videos. I have a running podcast app. I have a podcast app that I listen to podcasts with my daughter. I have a podcast app that I listen to Sleep With Me episodes to check them. And I have another general podcast app. Using one podcast app only for Sleep With Me Plus content. And I don't recommend subscribing to the free version of Sleep With Me unless you are very experienced in listening to podcasts. Because sometimes people get they're like, why am I getting ads? And it's like, there's not a way for ads to be in it unless you're connected to the free version of Sleep With Me, because they're hosted by 2 different companies in 2 different places. So start fresh just with the Sleep With Me Plus content in a new podcast app. And again, you could test out more than one podcast app. But again, I highly recommend doing some research, because it just depends on how you listen to podcasts and how you listen to Sleep With Me. So fresh start. That's another recommendation based on the comments and stuff I'm getting, and just all the tests. Okay, number 5 is, why is that a 1 there? 5, 6. That's also 6, 7, 8. Okay, these are 2 points within 5. That's why. Point 1 and point 2. 5 is, I don't recommend waiting to move over. I recommend reading everything and then moving over. You don't have to move over tonight. But I recommend moving over because I don't, based on all the feedback we've been getting from people testing out and now using the platform, is that your experience as a listener is going to be vastly superior, because the whole reason we moved over, the original reason we moved over, but the whole reason we put so much work into it over the past few months is that, and that I'm so excited about the move, is that it is based on how people listen to Sleep With Me. Instead of everything being in one, we've been calling it the fire hose feed. Everything is separated out, and that's just how I mean, I've been doing this for 10 years. How people listen to Sleep With Me is very different for each person, and then you can kind of change. So there's an ad-free feed with just ad-free episodes that goes back to all the way to back to around 400 if you're a Boar Bud, and then all the way back to episode 2 if you're a Boar Bestie or a Boar Friend, and that corresponds to $10 and $20. It's the same as Patreon, but it's just the ad-free episodes. And again, those come out twice a week. Then the story-only episodes have their own feed for musicians, people that can't listen to music for other reasons or prefer not to hear music, or people that just like listening to listening all night long, or just like the stories. And then there's for the top 2 tiers, there's a feed with all intros and the all night compilations. And that's just because there's all intro listeners, and there's people that like listening to those all night episodes. And then there's a bonus feed with bonus content. The bonus feed is like a potpourri, on location episodes, Fearless Flyer episodes, Ray episodes, Posty special editions. So the experience is better. So there's 2 things that people ask, like, that are primary motivators with Sleep With Me. people that support the show financially is like, oh, what is going to be the best experience for me as a listener? Moving over as soon as you can is going to be the best experience for you as a listener. Yes, it may take some adjustment period. Yes, you will have to rebuild your playlists, but it's going to be a lot easier. It's also better for the show. Like the sooner people move over, the sooner we'll have clarity on what's sustainable and what's not. And I'm just seeing on the back end, there's a lot more transparency for me that I didn't have in the past of why payments aren't going through or what fees we're paying. So if you want to do what's best for the show, moving over is going to be what's best for the show. But it really turns out that what's best for the show is service and what's servicing the listeners and what's putting people to sleep. And I mean, like once you see, it's the same thing with the transparency in the back end. Once you see the front end, you can't unsee it. Like once you have a feed with just the ad-free episodes or just the story-only episodes, it's tough to go back. I mean, it's like, I mean, once we started working on this, and it's been a lot of work, like it was like, holy cow, just seeing, it was just like relieved some lizard part of me to just see everything and just to be able to be like, oh, okay, that's how many Ray episodes there are or whatever. And then just to be able to start to rebuild some missing stuff that was missing on Patreon over the next year. Okay, so it's 5. Like, don't wait. I mean, I can see the only reason waiting is like to get information. So yeah, take a couple days and watch all these videos and consume everything and read everything and then move over, I would say. This goes into 6, which is please don't wait to cancel your Patreon account. Like if you've joined Supercast, please cancel immediately. One, there you could get double billed, and that could like if that starts happening, that's going to create like a big issue with our, like we don't have a dedicated person to just deal with running refunds and stuff like that, and so I would have to take time away from making the show. So, and I mean, we're talking about a large number of people, so it's like if you could just cancel your account, it'd be huge. Because what's going to happen is if that happens, then I'm just going to have to, instead of easing people off of Patreon and then hearing the people that aren't moving, that are going to be slower to move and being able to listen to them and say, hey, what else can I do to get you moved over? I'm just going to have to shut the Patreon down or something to force people. And I don't want to be in that position to just force people off of Patreon. Yeah, like, so I think that's, what else? So please cancel as soon as you can. What does this say? Yes, pay. Yes. 7 and 8. I don't know what they are. Wrote this up like an hour ago. I'm going to pop to the questions on YouTube and then pop. I think there was 1 or 2 questions. Okay. 7. Oh, 7 and 8 are, yeah. I mean, you're moving over. I explained in another video, but yeah, there is like an upfront cost. Even if you just paid, unless you paid, even if you paid 2 days ago, there'd be like you'd pay. I think someone paid 78 cents. I saw a payment. Well, it's like $1.23, whatever. Like, so there is an upfront cost, and I realize that's not perfect for everybody. But we can't really ask, like Supercast is generously working with us to find a way to credit annual patrons or people that just became annual patrons to make sure that they're getting that money applied to their account. But even people, monthly patrons, they're prorating you by the day. So that's very generous. And we're also letting people keep their price because our costs have gone up, not just in producing the show. And while we think, yeah, I don't have to get into the back end of the making the show. And yeah, you will have to make new playlists, but it's going to be a lot easier. I think that covers everything. My phone is buzzing like crazy though. So I don't know if that's people posting that aren't on YouTube. Okay, let me see this YouTube questions and then I'll bounce. Oh, let's do a little nog. Okay, this is the nog that doesn't agree with me, but I haven't had it in 2 or 3 years. So I'm going to have it's Trader Joe's full nog. Pretty good. Not, no offense, Trader Joe's, not great though. And this one is a Dairy Gold Classic Eggnog. That one's pretty good. Let me just compare. I don't know. I don't have my glasses. Okay. Obviously, I'm excitable. Okay. Questions. Meow the cat just moved over. Pretty smooth process. Mary said, so I can continue to use Pocket Casts and Supercast is replacing Patreon. Supercast doesn't have an app. It just controls the feed. Yeah, Mary, we never used Patreon's app. It's not a podcast app. I mean, a couple in the early days we did, but it didn't go well because it didn't deliver podcast audio the way people wanted to experience it. So we stopped uploading to their app. So yeah, Supercast is basically a company working in the background for us, just like Acast has been for the past few years with Patreon, delivering all the podcast content. And so yeah, I guess you could keep using Pocket Casts, yes. And Supercast is now going to be hosting all of our bonus content and handling the billing and stuff like that. But yeah, so the same things Patreon did. Like Patreon did that with Acast and then handled the billing. And now Supercast is doing that. Meowcat loves all intro episodes. Mary says, I tried to move over. It was really simple, but they don't take PayPal. Yeah, they don't take PayPal. We're using a different company. I think that's a PayPal for the checkouts. That's maybe a PayPal competitor. So, but I could look into that. But yeah, I think because of those two companies are like, it's a payment processing company. But this is the first time we've been able to offer people people could not pay in the past by debit card or ACH, like direct. So there's a lot more options, and everything is in US dollars. So your credit card company or your bank is going to be able to do the transactions, because that's another place that just didn't work. It was something that was tried where people could pay in their local currency, but it was not fair. There was fees involved, and just banks are way better at offering a much better lower transaction fees and better exchange rate. Okay. Oh, thanks. Let's see. Okay, next question is, are we still going to get emails when there's new videos up or when you do office hours? I'm not sure. I strongly recommend joining the Discord, which we've been trying to get people on Patreon over to too. Like very few people would check the posts we put on Patreon about new videos. So I'm still in search of like a better way to do that. We may have another way. But I would say, yeah, either join the Discord or make sure you're on the Sleep With Me Plus email list. And those will be the two ways we'll primarily communicate, though we're still testing out stuff with Supercast, and they have this AMA feature that maybe will work like that. But yeah, the Discord is going to be the primary place, as it has been kind of for the Sleep With Me community. And Discord, I posted on Patreon, there's a way to go on Discord and be invisible. So if people just want to come on Discord to like read what's posted there, or whatever. Yeah. Okay. Jacqueline said, yeah, maybe, yeah, hopefully. I only have a little bit of that Nog, but I'm going to have to finish it at some point. Mary said, I'm pixelated. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it might be my thing. I don't know, Mary. Charlotte, change is inevitable. The lulls are constant. Yeah, this is the first change we've had in a while this big, but it's a good change. It is going to be a little bit rocky, just because it's at the end of the year. It's not ideal for anybody. And we kind of when like this, it's still be the true for Supercast, but it's like we like start to plummet. Like it's just weird that if I don't ask people to sign up to be a patron, about 2 million people a month, we that's how we stay even. Like if we net 0 patrons, if I ask about 2 million times a month on the free feed, but I haven't asked at all because we've been working on this. We haven't run any Patreon ads. So we people, I don't know. They start canceling their Patreon pledges. Yeah, we have to get back to 0 and then get back to where we were. But this is just going to be so much better of an experience. I'm very excited. Yeah, we did put it. I did post it in the Discord before the video started. I'm not sure about the tagging everyone or not. Maybe I'll try to look into that in the future. All right. Anybody else on YouTube or anybody that's on YouTube already with questions, feel free to post them. Let me check. I thought there was 2 questions. Man, my phone is buzzing a lot. Okay. Oh, Snow said hi. Hi, Snow. Someone on another post kind of said, setting up the feed with Patreon seemed daunting. This is a lot easier process. But again, if it feels intimidating, just read through everything, and then ask support for help. That where support is there to help you. We put up a lot of resources, and I know everybody has a different degree of experience with podcast apps and stuff like that. But as long as you have the podcast app on your phone, and if you go through things slowly in a step-by-step process, it's the same. I mean, it was very similar with Patreon, and that took a couple more steps. Where Supercast, it's like once you're at sleepwithme.supercast.com and you're logged in, like that's the page that you add the podcast, because that's all it's designed for, is to get your podcast. I mean, you can join the Discord from that page. You can change your account from that page. You can check out the AMA stuff from that page. But the main thing is like getting you into the bonus content immediately. And if you do it on mobile, it's like very quick. I think there was another question somewhere else. I wonder where that question was. I think the question was about the fire hose feed. There's some people that have been listening and they're used to that fire hose feed, which means everything comes through one feed on Patreon, and especially for the $20 patrons and the $10 patrons. I mean, that's a lot of stuff coming through one feed. It isn't. So if people have a preference for that, one would be, let me know. 2, try out the Supercast feed for a while and see if you have a preference. We just wouldn't be able to offer it at the $5 or $10 level, but maybe we could sell. I think there's probably a way we could do it as a hidden thing, like sell it as a separate subscription, or add it to the $20 tier. The problem is that we'd need to add it in an invisible way, because it's just, I have to kind of keep all the patrons' needs in mind. And there's just a lot of people that have different degrees of experience with podcasts and podcast apps. And we're trying to create this really simple process that's really easy to use. And the thing is, once people get into the fire hose feed and they have this feed that's throwing all this stuff at them, it's really easy for them to get lost. And it's also easy for them to then start like being able to have trouble finding what they want to listen to, and even getting a confusion between the free feed and the paid feed. And people cancel their subscriptions all the time because they're subscribed to both and they get ads. So I would say try life without it. I mean, and it's not actually that different because if you're using a high quality podcast app, um, and you're only using it for Sleep With Me content, like all that stuff's coming through your feed, and like it's coming through anyway. I mean, I guess I'll throw another option out there that Joe suggested to me a long time ago. This is advanced level. So again, if you're new to podcast, this is only for my lights just changed. But I would recommend iCatcher. I don't know if it's a paid app, to be honest with you, because I had it based on back in the day when I was trying to encourage patrons to try out better podcast apps. Joe C said, hey, I use this iCatcher app, and I really like it. So I started using that app, and it is it's an app you have to learn how to use. I mean, like, again, that's why I'm only saying this for Firehose feed people. But once you learn how to use it, that's the app I use for running because it creates a smart playlist and it populates that smart playlist. And, but even I have not dug into the settings in a long time. And even I have to do a lot of pruning of the playlist. But that could create that iCatcher would easily recreate the Firehose feed feel, because you could just create a Sleep With Me playlist and then have it auto-populate from all 4 of your feeds. The other issue is people cancel their pledge because of on-location episodes. People there's anything that people are a super fan of, there's people that loathe that and will cancel their pledge because of it. Or also like send me intense stuff. And it's like, okay, yeah, no, but that's why we put out so much different content. So those are the issues with the Firehose feed. But again, if you're like a high level supporter, there is a lot of flexibility, and this is a much smaller company we're dealing with, and there's a lot of flexibility on the back end. So it could be something that we could add later on. Heather says, apologies. Will there be a time when everything fully switches over to Supercast and your Patreon goes away? You know, yes, Heather, most likely. I mean, I thought for a while that we might be able to do both. I know there's one company that has been able to do both. They're a much larger company than Sleep With Me. But seeing the I don't have any plans of immediately closing the Patreon because we have such a wide and diverse level of patrons and supporters. But yeah, after seeing kind of like the experiences from the listeners, and then just having a little bit more clarity of how like payments are processed. I did not have any of that information over the whole. Only thing I could see was like I could never see other than that someone's card was declined. I never knew any other information than that. And I mean, we have like about 1,200 people that are still patrons that have declined cards that have never been fixed, and I don't have any idea of any of that stuff. Where now there's still going to be a lot of declined cards. It's just part of retail or service businesses. But I don't know, just having access information and just a better idea of what I'm being charged. Supercast charges a flat fee, like per subscriber. So it is more expensive. But it is, I mean, it's more expensive and it's worth it. But 2, it's more expensive. But it's a very clear number because it's a number. It's an amount of money per subscriber that we pay, no matter what level people are at. And then the processing is still processing through credit card payment companies, which is a bit complex because they charge you a percentage and some cents and stuff like that. But it's just a lot easier for me to see that. And since I've seen that over the past week or 2, it has been pretty eye-opening. And so, yeah, we're going to migrate people over from Patreon. I don't have a timeline yet. And and yeah, it's just not fair on the team, like whether like doing double and triple uploading. That's kind of what happened with the Patreon app, is like we had to upload stuff separately, and it just wasn't working, because it's like that is like a significant cost when you're making, if we're putting out 150 episodes a year or whatever on Patreon. And it's like, oh, is that really a good use of somebody's time? So yeah, we probably will be, I mean, yeah, we're going to be fully migrating everybody over. It's just of like, how can we do that in a graceful way? Because, I mean, I think the thing is that people are experiencing it just if you're in a place communicating how much you're enjoying it, because like very much like people that became patrons, people that are on Supercast, it's like word of mouth. Like if you're having a positive experience, it's good for you, it's good for the show, it's good for other listeners. But yeah, I mean, it hurts me because it's like I mean, I said it in another video that we posted, but without Patreon, there would be no Sleep With Me at all. I mean, I would have stopped making the show, or yeah, I probably would have stopped making the show. I mean, maybe I would have reduced it to 2 episodes a month, which is probably what would be doable. But then eventually, like 2 episodes a month, it would have been something I would have probably tried to make something else or work on something else. So without Patreon, Sleep With Me wouldn't exist. But it's just that, I don't know, originally, like I talked about in the other video, it was like, we've had some decline issues and some payment processing issues. And I was kind of like trying to stay positive, and I figured those would eventually get resolved. And then it was like that we just wouldn't have Spotify integration, which is, depending on what statistics I'm looking at, the number 1 or number 2 source of listeners. And there's been something that Spotify listeners have been waiting a long time for. And I've been telling them it's coming, it's coming, it's coming. And then it just ended up, due to this thing in the back end, it was just not going to be possible. And I was clear with Patreon. I was like, hey, if this isn't possible, I have to start looking for something where I can offer premium content on Spotify for Spotify listeners, because that's like one of the largest chunks of listeners to the show. And that's a huge, we don't get paid any money by any platform. So it's like a huge opportunity. And there's a lot of people that are dissatisfied that listen on Spotify that want to listen to ad-free shows or whatever. So that was kind of what led me to do informational interviews with other sleep podcasters that I'm friends with and that have like different size sleep podcasts. And it came down to 2 choices, and putting Phil to sleep. But yeah, I like learned more about Supercast, and then I met with Supercast, and then it wasn't even, and then I got access to Supercast on the back end. And then I was like, wait a second, like, am I seeing this right? Like, I mean, I remember I had 2 or 3 calls with one of their one of the people on the back end. And I was like, wait a second, like, wait, can we really do this? Like we could just have an all intro feed, like, or all intro all night feed. Like, I mean, we did try to keep it to 4 feeds. That was like strongly encouraged because it creates confusion. But anyway, and that was like, okay, like, but they also offer like a lot of other things, like being able to integrate in our referral program, being able to let people keep their current rate, being able to offer gift subscriptions eventually, and being able to do like a little bit more customization, but just splitting the stuff into feeds. And then also now like having a little bit more control over, just a little bit more transparency on the back end. That's not like it's because it's like, like, I don't know, Patreon's very similar to Sleep With Me, where it's kind of like growing and kind of building as they're growing and figuring out what they are. So it pains me to move people off of Patreon, but Patreon is also like focused on a lot of different creators and stuff like that, where Supercast is only focused on podcasts. And that's kind of like the appeal. So that was a long-winded way of saying don't have a time frame. But yeah, and yeah. So yeah, thanks everybody. Thanks for the questions. Again, there's a question thread on the Discord. Feedback at sleepwithmepodcast.com. You could give me questions, feedback type questions, but for support questions, it's support@supercast.com. And yeah, we're sending out messaging everywhere, but every patron kind of gets their messaging in different places. So you'll be hearing messages in your Patreon feed. You'll be getting direct messages on Patreon. You'll be getting email. You'll be posting on posts in Discord. But again, much like I tell new listeners to Sleep With Me in general, like I mean, I recommend moving over as soon as possible, but you don't have to rush to move over. But your experience is going to be a lot different. But take your time when you do move over and go slow. Read every screen. Again, like I posted in the other video, you're going to go to the thing. You're going to log in with your Patreon. It's going to show you how much you're going to be credited and what your next payment would be. What's the preferred? Phil, I don't understand what you mean preferred stream method. Yeah, but I'm here. Philip, sorry, not Phil. I'm here so I can answer that question. But yeah, and then you connect. Then you create your Supercast account. Oh, you don't. You could. Most people download the show, Philip. You could stream it. We don't have a preferred method. It's all the same because it all comes through one thing. So it's like whatever podcast app you prefer works. Whatever works for you. Like I kind of said, like you're probably better off having a dedicated podcast app for Sleep With Me Plus content, whether that's Pocket Casts. Here's the ones I use on a nearly daily basis: Overcast, iCatcher, Pocket Casts, and Spotify and Apple Podcasts for different stuff. So it's like, yeah, if you just, I would say like keep using Pocket Casts if it's working. Yeah, it's usually the one I recommend because it's on Apple and Android. It's free. You can pay and get more features, but it comes with pretty solid features, and it allows search in the feed, which is like the biggest thing that's missing from more simpler podcast apps like Overcast. I don't even know if iCatcher does because I don't use it for that, but like Overcast, Podcast Addict, and Pocket Cast, you can search in the feed. So you could say, where are all the Ray episodes? You just search for Ray, boom. And now with those smaller feeds, there's one other bonus. I'll just finish up with this. The other thing with the Firehose feed is that there's almost no podcasts that have over 3,000 or whatever is in the $20 feed, 2,800 episodes that are over an hour. And so sooner or later, that feed was going to give out. I was like, literally, I guess I'm acknowledging that I was like constantly like not worried about it. It was like we were trying to trim metadata. And, but at some point, like podcast apps were not made to parse that much information. And I think even a couple of them had failed before. Like, I mean, when the engineer for Acast, way back when we moved our archives there, which Patreon helped with, they were like, what are these 8-hour episodes? They're like, and then the same with Supercast. They were like, is there really over 2,000 items in that podcast feed? So there's some stuff that's kind of unprecedented with Sleep With Me that even podcast apps aren't really used to dealing with. All right, thanks everybody. I'm glad I got to deal with you. I'm gonna finish my nog, have my dinner. I watched the Godzilla movie earlier today, the new one, and then I'm gonna go to bed early. Good night, everybody.